Hey everyone, welcome to Professor Long's Lectures in Anatomy and Physiology. I'm Professor Bob Long. These videos are intended for use by students who are enrolled in my course at Del Mar College. If anyone else on YouTube land finds these helpful, great. I hope they help you do well on your exams and learn some anatomy and physiology. If you do like my videos and they help you, please hit like. If you want to subscribe, and then when I upload new videos or to make changes, you will be notified by subscribing to my channel. Now, today's video is going to be a laboratory video for Part 2 A&P, and we're continuing our study of the vascular system on wireman. Again, I'm not focusing on wireman initially. I'm drawing the vessels out so that you can get the roadmap in your head, and then when we apply them to wireman or anything else that you see, any other model that you could possibly see, you could figure out what's what by checking all your landmarks. Just like if you drove down a certain road in your town, you know the first right is this, the next street crosses over and its name, and the next street, you can name all the streets in order. You should be able to picture certain maps in your head because you've driven that street so many times. Now we're going to draw the road map to some of these vessels as we trace a drop of blood from the heart through the aorta, now down to the foot. We've already done the vessels to the head. We've done the vessels to the arm, we've done the vessels to the abdomen, or at least the arteries. And then there'll be another series of videos for the veins. So I'm going to do the drawing of the arteries that go from the heart to the foot as they appear on our list of things to know and the vessels we want our students to learn. Your instructor may require more or less, but nonetheless, that's what we're going to cover. This will be a good basic introduction for anybody taking A&P and studying the vessels. Now, because I'm going to be going down to the foot, I'm going to draw the heart very high up, and I'm going to make the aorta kind of short because I need a lot of room to show you all the vessels to the leg. And one of the difficult parts of learning all this stuff is I don't have a three-dimensional way to show you those vessels that come forward, but on this section there are some that come anteriorly and some that run posteriorly, and that gives them part of their name. I have to draw everything on a flat surface, and it's going to be hard to see. I wish you could get your hands on a 3D thing and rotate it and see how it works. But nonetheless, let's do this. So I'm going to draw the heart very high up. I'm going to draw the large vessel coming out of the heart called the aorta, the largest artery in the human body. And of course, there's three major vessels coming off the aorta. There's the brachiocephalic, the left common carotid, and the left subclavian, or I'll just put sub C. We learned those in a previous video, but they're always off the aorta in that order. We have the liver and the diaphragm here, so I'm just going to draw the diaphragm where we would hit the abdominal aorta. There are 5 major branches we learned in a previous video coming off the aorta, and the abdominal aorta, I should say. There's the celiac trunk, there's the superior mesenteric, there's the 2 renals, and actually the left renal comes off above the right renal. There's the 2 gonadals, and then if I come down, there's the inferior mesenteric artery, okay? So, celiac, superior mesenteric, renals, gonadals, inferior mesenteric. That'll give you sort of the basic rundown. Off the celiac trunk, we had the hepatic, splenic, hepatic, and gastric. We're not focusing on those because we've done them in a previous video, but they give us a basic idea of where we're at. This vessel, number 1, always all the way down, is going to be the aorta. If we always start in the same place, then we can always check our landmarks in order. Once we get past the inferior mesenteric artery, I'm going to redraw it a little bit because I messed it up, but it's going to be the inferior mesenteric artery here. The aorta, the abdominal aorta, is going to end, and it's going to split into 2, right about waist level, right here by your hips or your iliac bones. Again, I'm going to follow the left side, but everything that I put right or left on means there's another one on the opposite side. They just cut it short on wireman so we could focus on the veins. So we're going to focus on the left side of the model here. But this vessel, I'm going to label this one number 2 on this key. That vessel is called the left common iliac artery. And again, this is why you can't just learn things for tests and forget it. You're going to carry this knowledge forward and build on it like a pyramid and get more and more detail. So you should know what iliac means from the iliac bones. Okay, so that's your left common iliac. This would be the right common iliac. If I follow the common iliac out a ways, it's going to split into two. And really, this is the same vessel, but once again, on our landmarks, the same vessel can change names as it passes a specific landmark, okay? So when it splits, the common iliac ends and it becomes the internal and the external iliac. So I have the left internal iliac artery and I have the left external iliac artery, okay? The internals would always go in. If I followed the right side, it would do the same thing, internal and external, okay? The internals always go in, the externals always kind of go out or laterally. Now, the internal is going to have many little branches. We're not going to cover those. We're going to follow the external iliac artery. On our wireman models or on other models, there would be a piece of bone here, or sometimes we put a little zip tie. So I'm just going to make a little mark here. And that's sort of a landmark where your iliac bones are in your waist. The external iliac will pass your hip bone and it will exit the pelvic cavity and then come down along the inside of the femur or the inside of your thigh. So it's the same vessel, it just changes names as it goes along the bone up here. And that bone is called the femur, so that would be called the left femoral, or some people say femoral artery, tomato, depending if you go to Harvard or Harvard. But it's femoral or femoral. Okay, you'll hear it pronounced both ways. The left femoral artery runs along the left femur. It is a continuation of this same vessel, it just keeps changing names. Now, on a human, the femoral artery will dive and go kind of posteriorly, and you can see where it comes out in the back of the knee, called the popliteus or popliteal region, or some people say popliteus. Again, tomato. But the femoral artery is actually also going to have these little tiny branches that come off that go all around the knee joint. And then it's going to split. And just before it splits, and when it does split, one of the branches is going to come forward. I do not have the ability to draw the anterior tibial artery coming forward. So I have to change its name or change its color so that you can see it. And so we are going to have a blood vessel that comes forward and runs straight down here and goes to the top of the foot. And I changed the color to orange. Okay. Now, before I get to this, as I come down the femoral artery, where these little branches are until it splits, this section right here is going to be called the left popliteal, or some people say popliteal artery. And it really is the same vessel, only after these little branches and where it splits, there's a small section. Now, this next branch coming off here is going to be called the left anterior tibial artery, because it runs along the front of the tibia, your shin. And the popliteal artery continues straight down, but changes names after the anterior tibial comes off. And this branch here is going to be called the posterior tibial artery. One runs in front. Oops, come on, Bob. And one runs behind the tibia. And again, if you look carefully, this is one long continuous vessel, but it keeps changing names. Common iliac, internal and external iliac, femoral, popliteal, and after the anterior tibial comes off, this becomes the posterior tibial. Now there's two more vessels I need to show you. One comes off of the posterior tibial artery, and it's actually going to go laterally. And as it goes laterally, I'm going to put sort of a break in it as it passes behind this. But this is going to be called the fibular artery. And since we're on the left side of the body, we would say the left fibular, also called the perineal artery. Okay, from the peroneus longus or peroneus muscle. The fibularis longus is also called the peroneus longus muscle, And so you can say left fibular artery or left perineal artery, same difference. And it's going to run sort of behind all of this and off laterally here. If you remember in your shin, there's two bones. There's the tibial bone, which is more medial, and the fibula, which is lateral. And that's why this is called the fibular artery. Okay. Now the anterior tibial comes down and makes this little arch on the top of your foot, and that is called the dorsal arch. And it's a little loop of arteries on the top of your foot. Now this doesn't end. There's some other arteries down here, but we're not going to name them at this point. This is a good basic rundown of the vessels to your leg. Common iliac, internal and external iliac, femoral artery after it passes the hip bone, popliteal artery just before it splits. The popliteal splits into the anterior tibial and posterior tibial. The posterior tibial has a branch that goes laterally called the fibular, and the anterior tibial has the little dorsal arch. Remember, the dorsum of the foot is on top. The plantar surface is the sole of your foot. So that's a good brief rundown of all the arteries. I hope that this helps. You can pause the video, you can make your drawing, you can label it, you can practice this until you can do it. Practice drawing it and labeling it until you can do it from memory, and you'll make a great grade on this lecture test. On this lab test. I hope you had as much fun as I did. I hope you enjoy learning the arteries. I know I have a blast with it, so if you ain't having fun, why would you do it? See you on the flip side in the next video. Thanks for watching.